Welcome to the Move 101 podcast. In today's episode, we sat down with YouTuber YourFriendAndy. Andy specializes in wealth building and financial freedom through cash flow and passive income, including small business, crypto mining, and node running, as well as traditional finance. At age 29, Andy was $86,000 in debt and knew he needed to make a change. By age 36, he and his wife became millionaires for the first time, and he now shares his methods for growth with others online. He's a great resource and educator in the space, and he provided us with some great information on how we can improve our own financial health and avoid some of the mistakes he's made along the way. We hope you find this information useful. Just to be clear, none of this is financial advice. This is for educational and informational purposes only. With that said, hope you enjoy it, and thanks for listening. Well, Andy, welcome to the podcast. Your friend, Andy, hopefully one of our new friends here. We are so excited to have you. Thanks for taking the time to be with us today. And we're looking forward to picking your brain on finance and passive income and crypto. And just again, wanted to say thanks for taking the time to be with us.
Yeah, of course. It's me, your friend, Andy.
Yeah.
Hello. Happy to be here. Happy to chat all things finance.
Awesome. Yeah, we're looking forward to it. So as I mentioned to you, kind of one of the, we're looking at all these different areas of health. So financial health will be the focus today. One of the things that we have found, certainly with physical health, is kind of, our main area, nutrition or exercise. But one of the things we find over and over is in order to be healthy, especially in kind of today's world, it really takes a lot of purposeful action, right? You have to kind of be pretty decisive about the steps that you're taking. The default position is not always a very healthy position in our Western world. But I'm kind of curious, just as a little bit of background for you, what was it that got you kind of thinking along those lines of taking purposeful action towards whether it be financial freedom or however you want to describe that, towards kind of where you are now?
So I would describe myself in a lot of areas of life, but especially with finances, as a late bloomer. At age 29, I had copious amounts of credit card debt, virtually no investments to speak of, no savings. We were living paycheck to paycheck. I wasn't particularly loving my job or loving prospects of the future financially and stuff. And there's all the stress and whatever surrounding all that. And there was not this revelation light bulb moment. However, there was a series of stresses and anxieties that we felt that eventually I just kept saying, I got to get on top of my finances. Got to figure this whole money thing out. Got to, figure out why wealthy people have different lives than I do or whatever. I just kept kicking the can down the road, and eventually it just got to be too much. I don't know exactly when that point was. And I said, I'm going to fix this. So then that's when I started reading books. I think the first finance book I ever read that kind of clicked was by Ramit Sethi, I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And what's funny about all these things now, I look back on, I read some of that, I read some of Dave Ramsey and stuff. And there's all these fundamentals that I think are really helpful, but I also greatly disagree with certain things for my particular, lifestyle and things. And that's the cool thing about, books and internet and whatever, is you can kind of pick and choose what works for you and your path that, fits your goals and your lifestyle, and then go on that and figure it out and fail along the way, and then iterate and be flexible and stuff. But that's kind of how I got my start, and that was again at age 29. So most people hopefully would have started investing by then and getting things on track by then, but not me. I want to do things the harder way. But since then, I've been on kind of like this crash course of getting my financial life in order, and building online business and doing things. Just 1 or 2 years ago, became millionaires. Like, we have this very it's kind of almost rocket trajectory of when I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, to all in. I'm going to figure this thing out. I'm going to crack this nut. And here we are today.
Mm-hmm. It sounds almost like one of those tweets where by age 30, you should have.
Yeah.
It's always making me
those
feel
are popular.
terrible.
Yeah. A lot of people like to tweet those.
Yeah, but it sounds like you're kind of putting all those pieces together, and now you're starting to see the pretty incredible growth of some of those projects you got into. And what could you might give our audience kind of some of the, maybe a broad overview of some of the different pieces that you've put together now? I know you've done some crypto mining. You've got a community now that you've built. You've got your YouTube channel. What else am I missing?
Yeah. So, I mean, all the pieces that came together to kind of put us in the position we're in today is a lot of things. One of the kind of the backbones of my entire financial life is I am a lifelong entrepreneur. I was doing entrepreneurship since I was in elementary school and junior high and high school. And then I got kind of sold this idea that I have to go to college and get a normal job and just do the 9 to 5 thing. And I think that is great for some people, but it's not something that's I'm wired to do. And for some reason, I was kind of convinced myself maybe that I needed to go do that. And so I kind of got led astray in my personal kind of journey away from what I should have been doing. But then I found my way back to entrepreneurship. And since then, I've started multiple businesses and I have multiple income streams. And yeah, once you go from a single point of failure, single source of income to a much more robust, plethora of income streams, that is when you can really kind of crank on the gas when it comes to like investing and wealth building and stuff. Because it seems obvious to say it's like the more money you make, the more you can potentially invest, but a lot of people still just don't do the simple math on that one. So I am a huge proponent of people who have normal 9 to 5 job and stuff, just get maybe one extra like side hustle thing and doing a few hours here and there. It's unbelievable like how much it accelerates your entire journey towards like financial independence and stuff if you can just add a little bit of extra money that has doesn't get eroded by expenses in daily life and family and whatever. And then maybe it's even small, maybe it's like $100 a month at first, and then it goes up to like $500 per month, and people think, oh, just a couple $100 per month, that's not going to mean anything. But before long, it's a few $1,000s per year, and a few $1,000s per year over 10, 15, 20 years compounded, even in dead simple index funds. It's like that's a lot of money over time. And so those little things that you can do to really accelerate things is what I did just as much as I possibly could. I started my own business and then started more businesses and then doing all these side hustles. And then I got into crypto and did a whole bunch of, these passive income streams through crypto. So I'm just like trying to make as much money as I can and power into this like investing mindset as much as I can. And, here I am today.
Where are you headed with all that? So, I mean, first off, I love the momentum that you've built. And that's certainly one of the things that we've kind of found similarly is that you start small and it seems insignificant, right? We a few episodes back, we were talking about retirement and saying, you're not going to retire on $10 a month. You're not getting close, but that first step creates kind of that fire. And you're saying, okay, now I can build on that. And it's even though $10 is not much different from zero, it's a huge difference because you're in the game and you started playing the game.
I think you guys will probably speak to this too with like the health side. It's just like everything in life can benefit from like the snowball approach, but also even small amounts, even if it's like, if you're talking about like fitness and stuff, it'd be like, I can only do one push-up. Well, if you do one over and over again, you get in this habit of like, now I'm going to do this one thing over and over. Same with investing. $10. Yeah. Is it going to make a meaningful difference to do $10 per month, into your life? Well, one, it's better than nothing, but two, no, not really. But the habit you build, like the mental, like exercise you have of like, okay, I put my money here. This is what happens to it over the longer haul. I can see it grow. Then all of a sudden it makes sense to go, oh, okay, maybe how about $100? Now, how about $100 per week? How about $1,000 a month? $1,000 per week? It's just real easy to start slipping into the habit more and more, the more comfortable you become with it. Investing, health, well, whatever, take your pick. They all follow the same, principles, and compounding is far more than just money, for sure.
Yeah. That mental energy, even just there's this fact that you're looking at something and now you're owning that, right? It's a little piece of something that you can own, and very much entrepreneurship, like you were talking about, is very much about that. So that's definitely interesting there.
And some of those are interesting too. Like, so you're talking about reading a lot of books and just becoming familiar with a lot of these different methods for kind of finding the end result that we're looking for. And it'll vary obviously with everyone. What would you say in your reading were some of those fundamentals? Regardless, you talked about a handful of books. So if you could almost summarize them and explain what those kind of fundamentals are that are across all books. For example, using that same health idea, you have to move. It doesn't matter if you're doing push-ups, bench press, walking, running, or whatever. You just need to start exercising. So what are those fundamentals from your experience and on the finance end?
Yeah, like personal finance 101 in like a sentence is spend less than you earn, and of that leftover money, invest as much of it as you can. And now there's some like other, kind of nuance to that. Like I think a fundamental that I would most personal finance people tend to agree on, and I think is really, really important, especially when you're trying to get out of debt or get started or start investing, is like building an emergency fund. It gets maybe less important if you have lots of cash flow or more income streams and stuff, but initially at least, or the more, if you have kids or more, more family responsibilities, it could be even more important. But the point is, you need to build safeguards in your life financially that should things happen, should emergencies come up, should unexpected events happen, you have safeguarded your ability to stay ahead of that curve of spending less than you earn. Because I know when I had all the credit card debt and stuff, if we hadn't built up like an emergency savings the first time we had like a tire blowout or the transmission of the car, or the air conditioner goes out in the house, the first time that happens and you have to then divert all your money towards that thing, then you're like, oh, whoops, I don't actually make enough this month with my normal expenses to pay for that thing. Here comes Mr. Credit Card again, or here comes, some other way to stretch myself beyond my means. Now, I don't think credit cards are evil. I like credit cards a lot. I think, miles and points and stuff are awesome as long as you can do it responsibly. That's the key thing with all debt. But the point is, it's like, like if you can spend less than you earn, and then with the leftover amount, do really productive things, build emergency funds, start investing, learn to budget your money. It's like everything else is kind of easy mode after that point. But that like core habit building aspect of personal finance is not easy, because it goes against every like human nature we have. But if you can do it, you can be successful for sure.
Mm-hmm. Now, to expand on that a little bit, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but so we have our essentials that we have to pay for, and then you say invest everything that you have extra after that. And I know for me in my in my finance journey, it was, well, I found myself not really having much extra because I found myself kind of leaking it out other ways. So can you maybe speak to some strategies for having more left over, whether that be planning or some of the side hustles that you're talking about? Can you maybe speak to some of those strategies for having some extra at the end to be able to invest?
Yeah, so I think the most foundational thing you can start to do, and even though it is like super boring and nobody wants to do it, that is to budget. I personally use YNAB. You Need a Budget. It's a great tool that lets you put your dollars to work before you spend them. Whereas most budgeting tools, you kind of after the fact assign jobs to the money. Like, oh, I spent $500 on groceries this month. I'll plug all that stuff into groceries. Whereas YNAB is like, I'm going to spend $500 on groceries this month. You plan ahead. So budgeting is a huge one. However you want to do it, there's no right or wrong way. It's just whatever fits you. Budgeting is a huge one. Like we've already talked about, like side hustles. Like if you can just earn more money, you can then figure out those things. But I also kind of prescribe to the profit first method, which is, as I get paid, I don't get paid by anybody, but as I take in money through my businesses and stuff, I pay myself first before I pay anything else. So I've predetermined how much I'm going to invest of the money I'm making per month. One of the first things I do when my money rolls into my Stripe account, PayPal account, whatever, I invest it. And then you get real industrious with how you handle what's left over.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I like it's kind of a tough one to wrap your head around if you're new to like budgeting and things like that. But profit first is a really cool method of kind of doing that. You basically just spend your money on your investments before you have a chance to do anything else with it, and then you do the rest of life. So lots of strategies you can do around that. But I mean, honestly, like the bare bones like thing you have to figure out is just the habitual, like, how do I not, if I figure out how to take 5% of how much I make per month or 10%, and I'm setting that aside as investing, and the end of the month, I'm like, oh, I really want that new thing. I want to go out to eat with my friends. I want to do this thing. Like that's the core, like human nature aspect you have to fight with. And if you can just like defeat that part, then the, not spending everything on things you might not remember in a few months, it becomes easier and easier.
Mm-hmm.
The discipline. That's where, like you said,
discipline.
Fighting human nature is the key.
Uh-huh.
I think one of the big things I want to pick your brain about today is kind of how you walk through some of these decisions, the decision-making process, because I see that as such a key component of going from, at the start position and not knowing where to put your money into kind of where you are now, where things are working pretty successfully for you and your family. So at the beginning, can you kind of go back to the beginning, and how did you figure out where to put money in those first years as you were starting? Because that's, again, the decision of, do I put it in an index fund? Do I go into crypto speculation? There's so many options out there. And certainly we don't want to lose money. That's one of the things you always hear is it's great to make money, but you also want to make sure you're not losing it. So how do you decide where to put your money?
Yeah. So the first thing is that you do have to be okay with the idea that over time, some of your money is going to be lost. But depending on what you invest in and what your time frame is, it will eventually be okay. So, if you do dead simple index funds, S&P 500 index fund, Vanguard VOO, for example. Yeah, right now, S&P 500 is down 20% or 17%, some double digit number for this year, because it's a very bad year in the economy and stuff. But over the lifetime of the S&P 500, the return is somewhere between 8 and 10% over the past 60 plus years. So yeah, there's down years, but overall you're going to have more up years than down years, and eventually it's going to make you money. So first rule of before you can get started is whatever money you're putting into this is money you don't need immediately next month. Now, the more speculative you get when you get into crypto and stuff, maybe the rule changes from it's not money you don't need next month, but it's money you're okay losing. You're okay just throwing it away and saying that was a fun, little money experiment. And there's different degrees of that. But when I first started, I leaned heavily upon, experts. So when I read I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Ramit Sethi really recommends index funds. Dave Ramsey, to some degree or another, recommends mutual funds or ETFs or things. And I read some of the experts who were like, you need to open a Roth IRA. And I didn't know what the heck a Roth IRA was, but at age 29, I opened a Roth IRA. And I with Vanguard, and I had a target date retirement fund, which is now just shifted over to just S&P 500. But I just kind of leaned on those experts to see what is the best way to dip my toes into the pool, maybe the least risky, while also giving ability to grow over time, and that I can test the waters a little bit and maybe not lose 90% of it next week. Maybe it does go down 10% over a quarter or something temporarily. So lean on those experts, figure those things out. And then as I gained more time in the market and more expertise and learned more education, then I could kind of decide what is more my strategy, my speed, what are my goals. And that's when I started finding things like crypto, which, for me, I've always been big into tech and stuff and an early adopter of things. And, I grew up as the internet. I was alive before the internet was really, truly a thing. And then I watched it grow. And I kind of grew up during that time, and I kind of saw crypto as a thing hey, this is the second coming of the internet. It's the next generational shift, and I am poised to be able to take advantage of this. And like the internet, I think there's going to be plenty of .com bust where the super bubble of crypto pops repeatedly, and what's left over, can grow and become stronger, but a lot 95% of what exists maybe today won't exist in a decade. And so I operate from that perspective, crypto investor perspective, as a poor man's venture capitalist. So I'm just trying to make lots of bets where I think there's really interesting technologies and companies and stuff. And then I just know that a big swath of those are no longer going to exist one day. And hopefully a few of my stars, my unicorns, they make up for the losses. And so far, that strategy has worked out fantastically for me. Of course, that could change in a year or 2 years, but I'm going to keep kind of doing that, where I keep my eyes open for these interesting, crypto projects and see what's next, and try to make bets on what the future of the internet looks like, the future of money looks like, and then just keep iterating and working on my strategy. But I'm also simultaneously taking some of those more outrageous moments in crypto and gains and stuff, and I do roll some of those things back to safer things, safer in crypto as into Bitcoin, safer into just general finance as into index funds. So multiple strategies there, but I think the biggest thing is dipping your toes in with education, learning a bit, and then spending that time in the market, because there's no replacement for experience, no matter what you're into, but especially with investing in money, for sure.
I love that. I think very similar to what we were kind of mentioning with the idea of the $10 a month retirement, where you start, right? It's very similar of get in the game, start playing. And that is how you really learn the greatest lessons. Certainly true for me. The biggest lessons I've learned so far in my financial journey are the ones where I've lost. You mentioned kind of taking some bets and trying a few different things, putting some money here, not money that you're needing next month, but money you could afford to lose. But you'll learn those lessons along the way. I've heard the phrase tuition, right? That's your tuition for playing this financial game.
Yep.
Do you have are there maybe some of the bigger lessons that you've learned? What are some of those if you wouldn't mind sharing, because I think many times we heard this in a recent episode of ours where the best lessons are caught, not taught. But I still want to try to learn from other people who've done this journey, and you in particular. What are some of those big lessons that you've caught, and hopefully you can teach those to us?
Yeah. So one of the biggest ones. So while it is true that the younger you are, the more, potential there is for future gains and future compounding and stuff. So you should start investing and start getting on top of your finances as soon as you possibly can. That is true, but also simultaneously know that it's a truth that you have plenty of time. So you don't need to like figure it all out at once, or like, oh, if I miss this opportunity, it's gone forever and I can never, make up for it, whatever. So that really leads into FOMO, fear of missing out. And I have fallen onto the FOMO train tracks many times, where I see all these people making 1,000x gains or whatever, especially in the crypto space, but also in individual stocks and stuff. And I'm like, oh man, I got to get on this. If I don't do this now, I won't have this opportunity again. And then you jump on when it's, everyone's talking about it. And of course, obviously when you look at hindsight, it's like, well, that's the top. That's when everybody's getting out if they're going to get out. Otherwise they're going to ride on the way down and stuff. And so, just getting caught up in this like fear of I'm going to miss this thing. And that has been something I've had to learn the hard way so many times. And now I have a much, larger amount of patience when it comes to these types of things. People will mention something to me. Obviously I have a YouTube channel and Twitter account and stuff, and with some followers. And so I get lots of people who are always like, you got to check out this coin or this thing, or it's going to be the next Bitcoin, man. Like get on it or whatever. And I get, hundreds of these things. And if I were to like be bought into this FOMO and I'm going to miss out, I'd go broke on getting all these things. But instead I'm like, oh, I can just sit back and see what happens. There's plenty of time to see what happens next. I get to watch some fail. I get to watch some kind of bottom out and then start to go back up. And I'm like, oh, this one has really good fundamentals. Maybe I will get into this one. So yes, I do always recommend getting started as early as you possibly can, but like learning that patience simultaneously is so critical and would have saved me so much heartache and money if I just learned that a little bit earlier. And then that goes like hand in hand with like learning not to play the comparison game. It's like, I have some modest, amount of success, but there's for me, there's like, 100 other people that make me look like, I haven't done anything in life, and I can so easily get caught up in their lives and what they share online and all the cool things they're doing and think, oh, and now I need to stretch myself and go outside of my, comfort zone to an extreme where I don't know what the heck is going on and try to chase these things. Or I can go, okay, I'm going to do this at my own pace and my own way, and I'm going to figure out things and learn my own lessons. But I think even more so that falls to just basic finance stuff. It's like if you see your neighbors buying the fancy car and whatever, it's like, keeping up with the Joneses thing is a very real thing. People get raises at their work and they increase all their expenses. Lifestyle inflation is the silent killer. I believe it 100%. So the other big lesson is like, if you can just learn to like not get caught up in that comparison trap and not like stretch yourself every time you make a little bit more money. If you can just keep things kind of where they were, keep them simple, and then anytime you make more money, it just goes into like wealth building. That is a tremendous like builder. You maybe short-term sacrifice for long-term gains. Like I'd rather live a little bit of a harder life for a decade or so and then live rest of my life on easy mode than do like the easy fun, having a blast, buying a new car every year, buying every new iPhone, going out to drink every single night for a period, and then the rest of my life is like, well, it was fun while it lasts. I can remember those things, and now I got to pay for it. So like that, and also alongside, delaying gratitude, I guess, is another one.
Yeah. No, you talk about having, and especially as you are entering into this entrepreneurial time, or you see all these opportunities coming up and potential investments, you talked about this has good fundamentals, meaning something that would be worth investing in. So what would some of those fundamentals be? What are you looking for when you're approached with some of these new things, or when you find them? What can the average Joe kind of go that's getting into this, that doesn't have the years of experience that you do? How can we kind of shorten that time frame, and what are the things to look for?
So this question would be answered very differently depending on what exactly you're specifically looking at. For stocks, fundamentals look very different than real estate fundamentals, which look very different than crypto fundamentals.
Mhm.
Crypto is one of the biggest portions of my portfolio, so I can probably speak to that one the clearest. But with crypto, a lot of the time, if you're not in a bull market where you can actually take advantage of if it looks too good to be true, it probably is, but you can still make some money with it. When the market is on the way down or it is a down market, if it looks too good to be true, stay away from it. Absolutely. Fundamentally, that is a problem for a cryptocurrency. Do they have a public team? Does the team have a track record? Do they have a plan to actually make money with their crypto company? Is there some form of utility or reason for the token or the coin to exist? Is there a use case for whatever their blockchain is proposed to be used for in the future? Is there an addressable market cap? Are there like companies out there in the traditional world that do the same thing, but really didn't need to be modernized? And is this crypto project the answer to that modernization? Those are really great questions you can ask yourself about how you see this stuff fitting into the future. But also, there's a level of just like experience and like gut stuff, and I get it wrong plenty of times. But it's like, how did the people who invested in Uber like get that one right? So they saw potential, they saw a lot of the right fundamentals in the idea, but at the end of the day, it's still a bit of a speculation. They're trying to go with their gut on that one. They probably had how many that didn't work out before that one did. So fundamentals are incredibly important, except when they're not, because it's crypto and it's speculative. But I try to, if it doesn't have a lot of those things, and we're not in like a crazy market, any decision you make is a right decision. And bear markets are definitely not that kind of a market. Then I do lean on those fundamentals, but I also know at the end of the day, I need to make multiple good fundamental bets, because fundamentals will not equal success, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned the gut, because I literally wrote down the question: how often do you use your gut versus statistics to kind of make some of these investments and look into these opportunities? So I'm glad you brought that up, because that was exactly where I was going. But I think, Andrew, you had a question piped and ready to go.
Oh, I mean, carry on there. I mean, I think that's an important piece of that whole process of there's going to be some data available, but in some cases, like you said, Andy, there's times where you're going to have to maybe speculate a little bit. And I guess where I would kind of piggyback on that is, how do you know how much to speculate, right? Are there percentages that you're dealing with here from like, hey, here's my overall crypto portfolio. Here's a few things that I think have good fundamentals. I want to have a little bit of exposure to those, but maybe not go crazy. Are there kind of models that you use for that?
Yeah, for me, I certainly do. That are universal, definitely not. I think everybody has to figure out what their own risk tolerance is. Some people are like, yeah, I'm going to be in, for the long haul. I'm good with it. If it's a future 10,000x, I'm okay with it going down 90% now. And then the moment it goes past 50% down, they're like, whoa, this just became real. It's one thing to have intellectually understand what it's like to, at least on paper, lose a bunch of your money, but then actually see it happen is very different. So like you've already both kind of said, it's like you got to put some, get some skin in the game, put some money on the line, lose some money, learn some things, and then decide based on how that felt with small amounts of money, then to determine, okay, what is my actual risk tolerance? For me, I have a pretty healthy risk tolerance. But lots of people I know who are even more successful than me don't have nearly the appetite for risk that I do. So like for me personally, am I more risk tolerant than a lot of traditional investors? Yes, but even in the crypto space, I might be less risk tolerant than the next person, because like most of my holdings traditionally have been in Bitcoin, which I think is in quotes right now safe in crypto. I don't think I think Bitcoin's here for the next several decades, if not forever going forward. I really believe in Bitcoin, so the majority of my holdings have been Bitcoin up until the past year or so. And then I kind of break down my portfolio and like, okay, if I have the most conviction there, I believe the most that this is going to exist in the future, well, then bulk of my money is there. But then maybe 20% goes to top 25 projects, maybe 20% goes to some mid cap projects, and then I kind of like slide down the scale with risk. And then we get to like the ultra high risk stuff. Maybe it's like 1% of my portfolio or 5% if I really think it has a chance. I feel my gut says this is somewhere to go, but I never anymore Once upon a time I did. I never anymore overextend myself where I'm betting with a majority of my money on highly, in my opinion, really risky things in the world of crypto, because I've just watched it go sour so many times. It's just there's so much opportunity in crypto. There's so many possibilities to earn these crazy gains over time if you're in it for the long haul and you do multiple bets and you're thinking really strategically. I'm okay, not putting all my money into the one, even though I did watch it go 1,000x or whatever, and I could have made more money if I put more in. I just want to keep doing pretty good gains with smaller chunks over time and rolling over into things like Bitcoin that I really believe in, or even Ethereum. So the whole risk tolerance thing is a really personal question that I think you have to almost experience to a degree to determine like how much you're willing to put your money. And some people, I talked to lots of people who are very successful, and 1% of their portfolio is their entire crypto portfolio. The rest is all traditional. It's like index funds and real estate, and 1% of their entire portfolio is their crypto portfolio, and like 90% of that is Bitcoin, and maybe 10% is Ethereum. That's as speculative as they get, and they're still very successful with those things. So there's no right or wrong answer. It's just what's right or wrong for you.
And you talked a little bit about diversification, so mutual funds, index funds, crypto. How else do you diversify in that kind of opportunity to invest space, or your extra money? Is it only in those mediums, or what else have you kind of found yourself digging into or being interested in?
Invest in yourself and your own business for sure. I've rolled so much of my money into personal education. I don't even blink at spending hundreds or a few $1,000s on a key like consulting meeting with somebody who I know is an expert. Like I've spent so much money on YouTube people who like really know the analytics game and know the thumbnail and title game. I don't even blink at spending lots of money on that type of stuff, or courses, or lots of conferences, that type of stuff. But I also have just spent so much money just on my YouTube channel, just money it makes. I just roll right back into it. Hired full-time editor, spend money on equipment and lights and various things. So there's lots of things that don't have an actual like yearly return. But traditionally, because in my own life, as I've been an entrepreneur for most of my life, I've seen, I don't know why I said traditionally. Nothing about what I do is traditional, but at least in my life, traditionally, what I've seen is I get a very asymmetric return when it works. When I spend money on myself, on my business to advance things. And yeah, I've had lots of businesses or things fail, and those were, I guess, a waste of money on the surface. But I learned all these great lessons and stuff. And the next time I spent money on that, that business or side hustle or whatever, it worked, way better because I had that first lesson. So yeah, first and foremost, I try to spend on myself as much as I can, especially with smaller amounts of money. If you can only invest, a very small amount of money per month, a couple $100s or something, well, that's going to move the ball forward with investing. But maybe since it is a smaller amount, maybe you should consider like a little slice. That little slice is spent on you in terms of education, conferences, courses, take your pick. And the rest goes into your investment vehicle. And then you use that little slice you've been investing in yourself to then figure out how to turn that knowledge and skills you're learning into a way to make more money. Because if you just figure this, the internet's like this crazy thing that we've been given that like it's unlimited money and unlimited earning potential on it. If you can just figure out like 1% of the internet, you can make thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that will just like, it just catapults you, so you can spend 30 years with your just single 9-to-5 job and scrape by 5 or 10% each month to invest in index funds. And you can end up being a millionaire and being successful over time. Or you can double down on trying to like figure out how to earn that extra money on the side and get there in half the time and get twice as much money and achieve freedom even faster. But it's just it's a question of like time sacrifice. Are you willing to sacrifice the time to do these things?
Yeah, that seemed. I mean, I love the lesson there of investing in yourself. That's one of the things as I kind of worked through some of this, some of the crypto journey as well with different investments, some speculations and things. That's one of the things I find myself discovering is that I really like where I can control more of the outcome, and I'm discovering that along the way. I'm curious, have you found something similar? There's a lot of speculation out there. There's node projects. There's this and that, where you can effectively give your money to someone else to manage or to try to generate some return. But man, there's something if nothing else, something extremely satisfying about owning or kind of controlling the outcome a little bit more rather than, a speculative investment. Is that kind of in line with kind of what you've discovered there as well?
Yeah, I mean, like what you just said is the root of all my decisions. Like, I don't want to cede control. I want to cede my life's control and destiny to as few people as I possibly can. So that's one of the reasons why it's like hardwired in me to not do the 9 to 5 thing, even though it's totally cool to like do that for some people. And that's why it's like I want to get my investment numbers as high as I possibly can, as fast as I possibly can. I want to expand as many cash flow and income streams as I can. I want to get my crypto passive income working as robust and as fast as I can as well, because I want this money to come in, so I have this freedom, so I can choose who I say yes and no to on my own terms. I don't want to be beholden to people or backed into a corner to where I have to say yes to certain things. But yeah, when it comes to that crypto stuff, yeah, there's varying degrees of how you like give your money over to people and stuff. And I try to then like diversify again. It's like some of them, it's where I fully control my funds and my money. Some where I'm like giving over money and control to other people to manage and give returns, and varying degrees. But it's all underneath that is the foundation of like, I want my own personal freedom. And these are all just various ways to diversify the ability to have that.
Yeah, that sounds, I mean, I hear a very strong parallel there with just this idea of decentralization that we're seeing as, I would say, the fundamental of crypto. But I'm curious, what's your crypto thesis? Do you have kind of a underlying thing that kind of defines the problem that crypto is solving for you? Or, is it that the ability to own your assets digitally?
I have a lot of theses
Yeah.
for various different crypto. For Bitcoin, I even have several different ideas of why I'm investing. My thesis for investing in Bitcoin. One of the biggest ones is that I think fiat money has largely failed. We're seeing this rampant inflation right now, and we in the United States we have a government and economy where they can just print money whenever they want for any reason they want and devalue everybody's savings and spending power. And in people's incomes across the board have not been following these inflated numbers over the years and stuff. And I see crypto as one possible solution, or something at least to help alleviate the pressure of the problem. But also, maybe it's a bit of a utopian. Maybe I've watched too much Star Trek. I don't know. But I also, it's like we have a global internet. We have a global communication network where everybody, as long as you have access to it to some degree, there are firewalls and control in certain countries and things. But if you can get around those things, largely to some degree, you have unfettered access to everybody else and all the wealth of human knowledge, since we built all this stuff. And I think it's time for us to have the internet of money. We have all these siloed economies around the global economy, sure, of trading between countries and stuff, but it's all the money systems and financial systems are siloed across the globe. And I see a big need into the future. Maybe it's not 10 years from now, maybe it's 50 years from now, where we have a global economy, and we have a global currency, or at least a global asset class, and that maybe that is going to be Bitcoin. But I also love the idea that if you are in a country or somewhere where they inflate your money to death, or they take away your money, or remove your control of your money or something, that through the means of crypto, by remembering a 12 or 24 word seed phrase, which is your passphrase to your crypto wallet in the case of Bitcoin and others, you can remember those phrases. You can put all your money, your life savings into Bitcoin, throw all of your belongings away, get everything stolen from you. As long as you remember those words in your head and you walk across to another country, you can then open a new software wallet, plug in these words, and all your money comes back immediately to you. You have full control and full sovereignty over your money. And that's very exciting to me. Do we need that in a first world country like United States? Do we need that ability to go across the borders? Well, at least right now we don't. But there's other things I really believe long term for crypto that help people like us instead of in that kind of scenario. But then there's a whole bunch of things like certain cryptocurrencies try to solve supply chain problems, like keeping track of shipping containers and stuff like that. I think it's a fantastic idea for blockchain. And there's people who want to take the blockchain and use it for hosting websites and hosting social media and various things. And other people who want to put medical records on the blockchain, which I'm a little bit more iffy about. I don't know if my medical records forever mutably entered into the blockchain. We'll see. But there's a whole host of other issues. Other issues that these could solve, and other features and things that these different projects can provide. But those are some like, I guess, the top level ones that I look at.
Yeah, that's great. So kind of maybe with that as let's shift into some more of that. And I'm kind of where the direction I'm headed here is hopefully providing our listeners with some of the tools that they can then use if some of those theses resonate with them. What are some of the ways then that they can create some passive income, add to their chance for financial freedom, et cetera? So one of the big things that I've really enjoyed in following you and kind of your channel and what you do is mining. And I've seen you talk about mining and nodes. We'll keep those separate, but I'll let you kind of dictate where to go with that. But could you talk about kind of what originally got you interested in that idea of running mining equipment, GPU or CPU equipment, and now kind of shifting into the big guns with ASIC miners and Bitcoin and what you're doing? I'd love to hear more about that and kind of the journey that you've been on there.
So I've been in crypto for seriously for about a little over 5 years. But I actually got my first kind of taste of getting into the crypto world in 2014, and I built a Litecoin mining rig, and I couldn't quite get it. I was working that's when I was doing my 9-to-5 job. I was doing, and it wasn't 9 to 5. It was like a 12 to 14 hour workday job. It was a startup. Anyways, and I come home exhausted trying to figure out this mining machine. Anyways, but I had this little spark of an idea. It's like, hey, I can build this thing that runs in my house, that makes magic internet money, that pays in my wallet, that I can then convert. If I don't believe that's real money, I can convert it for what I think is real money. And it's just like this the idea of passive income has always been this like nebulous, vague thing that some people are like, it's the path to freedom. And other people are like, it's a big scam. It doesn't exist. And it awakened my curiosity. I'm like, if it is real, I want to figure it out. And if it's fake, I want to learn that. So at least I can rest at night and stop thinking about it. And so I went on this journey of trying to find these things, and eventually, got into crypto mining. I've made a lot of money with crypto mining. But I would say that all this passive income stuff, passive is sometimes it's not passive. Sometimes, other times it's not passive at first, and then becomes passive. Sometimes it's just truly doesn't even exist. The most passive income you can get is just buy index funds or something, or buy Bitcoin, and just over time it appreciates, and therefore you have more money. You literally do one thing one time, and then the rest of the time it's hands off. But there's things like crypto mining where you have to build a rig, and occasionally it goes down. You have to reboot it and stuff. So there's some element to it. But I have found if you can be successful at it, you wake up the next day and there's more money in your crypto wallet. Same thing with the nodes. It's like I fell in love with this idea. I could run this thing, and I'd go to sleep, and I wake up the next day and I had more money without any actual extra effort, more or less, from me. And so I found this passive income stuff to be very real. It's not easy. It's very complicated sometimes. It takes a lot of trial and error. So anyone who's like, trying to sell you on as an easy path to figure these things out is not easy, but it is figure outable. I really do believe if I can figure this stuff out, it's taken me 5 years. But if I can do it, so can you. But you might have to beat your head against the wall for a while before you figure it out. But crypto has so many incredible ways you can do this stuff. Mining is just one, nodes are another. But yeah, I got my start with GPU miners, and I largely did speculative mining, which is where I'd find projects when they first launch, before they hit exchanges. I'd throw my mining rigs at them. And then I don't know if people listen to this even know what mining is. But anyways, you exchange electricity and computing power, and you get in return coins. There's a lot of tech stuff that goes in between there. But I would pick ones out that people didn't know about. They weren't the most popular ones. And I hoped later, longer down the road, they did well. And I would say probably 90% of the ones that I mined over the last bear market ceased to exist or they folded. But my winners, my 3 to 5 winners, it's, I've turned like $5,000 or $6,000 worth of mining rigs into several $100,000 worth of crypto gains. And so the next iteration for me is I'm such a big proponent of Bitcoin that I wanted to get some actual skin in the game with Bitcoin mining. Bitcoin mining doesn't have any speculative ability to it other than you're speculating on the future price of Bitcoin, but you can't like mine other things with Bitcoin miners. So I'm like locked into mining Bitcoin. And it's very expensive to get into, and the power costs are extreme and stuff. So you have to kind of have a palette for all that stuff. But every day I wake up and my Bitcoin wallet has more Bitcoin. I think right now in this market, I'm mining about $120 worth of Bitcoin a day, I think. So it just shows up, and then just keep letting it accumulate. And I'm hoping that one day it's worth a lot more than it is today.
Earning money while you sleep. It doesn't get any better than that.
Literally. Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun.
What is your thought process or decision making with that? So as whether it's Bitcoin or a speculative coin, as those accumulate, right? As you mine or you're running a node, whatever the case may be, you're getting paid out typically in that same cryptocurrency. How much of that are you taking off the table and converting, whether it be, you mentioned de-risking into Bitcoin earlier, versus maybe even, I love the way you said it, which currency you believe is real. I assume you mean the US dollar, but de-risking further, let's say into US dollar, perhaps. The whole idea being, or one of the big ideas being, if you're trying to pursue passive income, the idea would be let's get some income. Let's make some dollars at the end of the day, which is what most people are using to buy things with still. So what's your thought process there versus, or from taking some of that off the table into, let's say, the non-Bitcoin or non-cryptocurrency world versus then reinvesting that or just buying and not buying, but generating and holding with the assumption that long-term, this is going to turn into a bigger number?
So this is where, again, it's like, there's no wrong answers. You do what you think is best. There's lots of people I know that have tons of miners, way more than me even, that treat mining as a business. Whatever they mine per month, they sell a portion of it they need to sell to cover all the electricity and utility costs. They sell another portion that goes to profit, and the rest they hang on to, or some version of that. Lots of people sell what they earn each month to then cover the electricity costs or whatever. I pay electricity costs out of pocket, and everything I mine stays in the crypto world as long as I can, because I want to keep as much of it as I can possibly for the long term. And that is, I can do that because I've got all these income streams and stuff, so I don't really need to take the money out of how much I mine per. I think a year from now it's going to be worth so much more than it's worth today. So why sell it today? But if you don't have all the other income streams, and you buy the miners because it is that income stream, and you want to buy like stuff in your daily life with it, well, then you have to do those things. Or if you're going to run it like a business, maybe you should do those things. So that's kind of the cool thing, is you can kind of pick your own adventure when it comes to like the strategy, how much you de-risk or convert or whatever. Now I've not kept everything in crypto forever and ever in the past 5 years. I have taken money, gains, and things, put them into my actual pocket and stuff. I track all this stuff. I pay taxes on this stuff. But the vast majority of things I do, I try not to do that until a future date when certain projects hit certain numbers that I believe they're going to hit, and then I can take out and things like that. So I just have a really long-term mindset. But that might not be, something other people believe. They might think, oh, I got to make some money now before it stops existing, and that's fine, because a lot of them will not exist in the future. So lots of things you have to consider and think about before you make those decisions. But there's not really a wrong answer, I don't think.
When you say long term, what is that?
Well, for some like altcoin positions, that's at least a couple of years. For Bitcoin, that's like decades. I do believe that there are some non-Bitcoin positions I have today that will be around in 5 or 10 years. I think it'll be a very small slice of them. So most of my altcoin positions, I try to accumulate during a bear market, and I try to offload during a bull market. Not fully, but most of it. I always tell people, hang on to your moon bag. Like if you sell 90% of it, hang on to 10%, because after it does a 1000x, you think it's done, but it might do a 10,000x, or it might go to zero. You don't know what happens next. So have a little bit of extra. But yeah, most of that stuff on the like multi-year shorter side is all altcoins, and then longer term is mostly Bitcoin or Ethereum or something.
Do you have more questions on kind of the ins and outs here? Because I'm digging this here. I was going to shift gears, but I don't want to do that if you're drilling down a little bit here.
Well, let me go one more here on Bitcoin, since we're on the topic here with mining in particular, Andy, and then I'll switch it over to Levi, who's and just for your info, I'm probably a little bit more. I've bought into crypto a little bit more, or just kind of believed in the magic pixie dust more so than Levi, perhaps. But
well, and to be fair, it's not that I'm a fiat guy either. It's I'm the guy that's buying tractors and water tanks and animals, and so it's the same thing in a different way. But go ahead.
Very much
investing, but different. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
Exactly. One of the things that is often a common argument against Bitcoin, perhaps, and I'm curious to hear how you think through this with if we can talk about Musk mining in particular, is the whole energy consumption aspect of Bitcoin. That's, whether you call that FUD or whether that's a legitimate concern with ESG legislation and things like that. How do you, so talk through kind of for the people who are listening, who are saying, hey, buying some Bitcoin miners might make sense for a passive income stream, but I'm worried about ESG legislation, or I don't know. Just one of the cool things with Musk mining is, at least to me, the brief bits that I know, is that they're using natural gas, kind of flaring natural gas. So this is stuff that would be wasted, and we're now converting it into an asset that, whether, depending on your thesis, could be, a massive benefit for privacy or some, not privacy, but ownership of assets. I'll stop talking, but I think you probably understand where I'm headed here with this, Andy. But give me your thoughts on that whole element of Bitcoin.
Yeah. So there's two elements here. There's one, on one hand, should I even get into this stuff because I'm worried that it might get regulated away in the future? And two, if I do get into this stuff, beyond those worries, I have the worry of, is this actually a good thing, or am I like killing the planet by being greedy to make internet money? And I can definitely speak to both of those. But on the is it bad for the environment? Is it bad for the world to mine Bitcoin? Energy consumption, like everything in life uses energy. Our houses, like, energy consumption isn't inherently evil. Just because it does something doesn't equate to it's wrong. It's what we do with it. So I personally believe that the net positive of Bitcoin in the future is very much warrants this expenditure of energy. But also it gets this bad rep of Bitcoin uses as much, all of Bitcoin mining globally uses as much electricity as the entire country of Argentina, which is true. But what they don't tell you is how much all the traditional finance world globally uses, and how Bitcoin is barely a blip on that graph. And I would argue that traditional finance, at least traditional banking and fiat printing and these type of economies have had their time in the sun, and maybe it's time for them to evolve. And I would much rather spend the energy on building this new network of money than continue growing this thing that clearly has its problems and isn't working as well as it was designed to. So it's like a question of like values and where you see the future, and is it worthy of spending this? And I vote yes, but some people would vote no. But then there's the question of if I get into this, is it going to be regulated away? And that is much more of an unknown for me. I think crypto, broadly speaking, regulation is inevitable. I'm a pretty libertarian kind of a person, so I'm like, if it doesn't hurt people, like, go do it. Like, I don't want all these laws and whatever, but I understand that the world maybe isn't going to work on an idealistic point of view, so we're going to have laws and various things. So I think that regulation is inevitable. So I hope the regulation is going to be good. And I think a lot of the progression we've made so far in cryptocurrency has been mostly positive when it comes to like how regulators are approaching it. I think there have been some steps backwards, but I think ultimately it's looking good going forward. However, I do recognize that the United States could all of a sudden determine, hey, let's screw this stuff. Let's start our own. Let's use the US dollar coin, and it's going to be its own centralized ledger, whatever, and let's ban Bitcoin. Do I think that's the death sentence for Bitcoin? No, but I think that would be a huge setback, and maybe we'd eventually get away from that. I don't know. But I maybe I'm just naive, or I'm an idealistic person, but I am optimistic about regulation going forward. I've seen several U.S. senators who put forth regulation that looked overwhelmingly good for crypto going forward, as long as if these things actually get turned into law, which it's to be seen will that happen or not. But I've seen stuff that I read the language of the bill and I'm like, this is in the right direction. So I'm kind of optimistically looking at it that way, and I'm investing as if those things are going to happen in a good way. But yeah, I mean, there's plenty of countries, China banned Bitcoin mining. They saw it as giving up control of things. They're a very different country than we are. The short answer is I don't know. The longer answer is hopefully getting across there is I have a very positive outlook on these things. I'm hopeful that more people will have a positive outlook, and I'm certainly putting my money as if these positive things will happen.
You've already got some great videos on the topic, so I would direct people back to that. But could you give like a short, the elevator speech for how specifically Musk Mining uses natural gas to fund, or not fund, but to generate electricity for Bitcoin mining?
Yeah. So specifically, I will also say that up until the China ban on Bitcoin mining, globally, like 70% of all Bitcoin mining was hydropowered. So it was all, so also asking yourself, where did the power come from, is already coming from a very green source. That percentage has dropped since we stopped mining there because they had so much hydropower, but there's still a lot of Canadian hydropower that's being used for Bitcoin mining and elsewhere in the around the globe. So there's lots of renewables being used for Bitcoin already. But what Musk is doing, and what a lot of other people too are doing, is lots of Bitcoin miners who are doing this, is something very interesting, which is, if you're driving in far west Texas and just on the highway, and there's like nothing around except you'll see all these oil derricks and oil pumps and oil towers, and inevitably you're gonna see all these stacks, these large pipes with just a fireball coming off the top. Like the one at the site I was at recently was like 30 feet tall, like huge. You feel the heat washing over you when you stand at the site. There's so much fire. And that is natural gas. So it's methane and various other things coming out of the ground, because when you pump oil out of the ground, you release all these gases that are, have been sitting there forever. You got to do something with it. And if these sites are not within, I think it's something like 30 or 40 miles of a processing facility for natural gases, or if they're not already on the route of a pipeline, it's not economical to drive trucks in there, pump them full of natural gas, and truck it out and sell it. So the answer is they either vent it. Lots of places you don't see the fire. They just vent it into the atmosphere, which is terrible. Methane is a horrible, it's way worse than CO2 as a greenhouse gas. It's many, many factors worse. They either vent it, or what most in Texas at least, do is they flare it. So they light it on fire, and most of it's converted over to CO2 and carbon, whatever. And that's better than methane directly, but still not great. It's not great because, one, it's a pollutant, but two, it's just literally wasted. You're doing nothing with it. It's just going up a pipe, you light it on fire, and you go, see you later, So companies like Musk, there's a bunch of different companies who are doing this, go in there and they pipe that natural gas away, run it through some giant generators, put a couple of containers on those next to those generators, fill them with Bitcoin miners, and turn all that natural gas into electricity to mine Bitcoin. And in the process, you actually, you don't release all the methane into the environment, because even when you burn it directly on the stack like that, it's like, 40% efficient at burning. A lot of it still just goes in the atmosphere. When you pump it through a generator, like 80% of it, 90% of it is actually converted over to CO2. So you don't have very little methane that leaks out. Plus, you're actually giving it use and making money with it. And so I think it's a really cool idea. And I wish more people lived nearer to these sites, because I think it'd be so cool if you had entire communities that were near these things. So you piped them over and you powered entire neighborhoods with these natural gas generators that was otherwise being wasted. Like, there's all this tied up power that's just stranded in places, and it's not being used for anything. So anyways, it's cool to see, Bitcoin miners having this initiative to kind of go and utilize this stuff and actually make something productive out of it.
All right, Levi, jump in.
Yeah, sorry. So I don't mean to, put a screeching hole here and shift gears. I have kind of two questions. So there was a little bit of an allusion to this, or alluding, not illusion, but alluding to, and I'd be curious to get your thoughts. What's next? So in our lifetime, we're all around the same age. We've seen paper and coin be a primary use to pay for things. then to plastic, and now to digital, or we're entering into that. So can you speak to what might be next, or what are, and this kind of goes back into some of that venture capitalism and maybe what's on the horizon. Is there anything that you see as being worth looking a little bit deeper into?
You mean specifically with like financial systems?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you've spoke a little bit to maybe where things will go, but yeah, like with financial systems, I mean, what's after digital currency, or how far does this take us maybe?
I think this takes us pretty far. I mean, I think we've all, in like almost all the transactions we do in the United States are technically digital transactions.
Sure.
Just like you said, coin and paper bills is something that is very rarely seen. Some places don't even accept it. They have the square registers; they can only accept credit cards. And some people are places are completely cashless, and that's becoming more and more of the norm. So eventually, we're going to transition away from that type of money altogether, I think, and go completely digital. But then the question is, what do we adopt? So obviously, we're going to continue doing digital U.S. dollars and stuff. But at some point, I do believe that crypto will achieve some level of worldwide adoption to the point where normal shops accept this stuff in some capacity. It's all touchless. There's slick apps that even your grandma can use. That type of stuff. There's a lot of really neat innovation coming with all those things, but it's still early. Like in this past bull run in 2021, there's almost 8 billion people on the planet, and yet there's only about 330, I think, or 350 million crypto wallets active at that time. So even though it was like crypto's here, it's the next greatest thing, it's still so incredibly early. We're still not seeing a lot of this stuff. Bitcoin itself, as its base layer in existence right now, is not ready for that mainstream level. There needs to be another layer built on top of it that's fast enough and has the slick apps and stuff. And there's none of this, business of the technical mumbo jumbo. We need stuff that is like the Venmo or Zelle or PayPal of the crypto world. And that's still, there's lots of things that look like they could be that thing, but they're not quite developed yet. So I think, one, we get away from the cash and whatever world, we get completely digital, and then we get touchless, and where it's, you just need your phone or your watch or whatever to do all your transactions. It's maybe tied to your identity. And eventually that then goes outside of the country barriers and it goes more global. And that's when we start maybe seeing that contactless digital payment system go away from, US dollar, for example, and go over to Bitcoin, or take your pick. And then we just see it evolve from there. And then all of a sudden your address is no longer an address, but it's like a name that people can send Bitcoin to and from, but has more your identity stuff on it, has some of those other records and things. You can go from country to country and not need the antiquated paper documents we currently do. It's like India, for example, they don't have paper passports. They have their app systems. There's already countries that play around with some of these things, just on the very edge, the cusp of it. But yeah, I mean, we're moving towards a digital world. I mean, Elon Musk has put, I don't know how many thousands of satellites around our planet now. So we're effectively everywhere you can stand or be on a boat or whatever, except for like Antarctica or the North Pole, you have internet access if you have the ability to receive it at 100 megabits per second top speed. So we're about to be in a world where no matter where you are on the planet, you're on the top of Mount Everest or in some valley in some part of South America, you can pull your phone out if it has the right chip and get internet access, and then talk to all these other people and be in this like we're going to be in this like digital world. Everything's digitized. We're just moving towards this. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I'm excited about it.
Yeah, and I think I asked that more so because like it's inevitable, and so it's
Yes.
almost stating it as in preparation. Because I will admit that I'm typically more, I wouldn't call it reserved, or maybe Andrew can jump in on where I'm at with this because he has a better perspective of it. But slow to the game, if you will, even or whatever that may be. But the more that I read, the more that I hear, the more that I watch, I realize this is something that's happening, and so. It's important for folks to, at the very least, be as educated about as possible, and then make your decision from there, rather than going like, oh, they're never going to use digital money, when, to your point, we're doing it already. And that's not even in the crypto space. So it's kind of more of a question to remind folks to continue digging into this stuff. But the next question that I have is kind of pulling it back more to a family perspective. You talked about risk, speculation, regulation, time, and sacrificing time to get to some of these places. How do you manage that with your spouse? And can you speak to the kind of conversations that we don't need the intimate details, but what are the kind of conversations that you have? Because when most folks hear risk, speculation, like all these things, they kind of start to curl up and the shoulders start to raise in stress. So how do you guys walk through and manage some of that stuff?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I do want to say real quick, and the last thing you were talking about, yeah, it's okay if you don't get into the world of crypto and stuff, but do consider these things, because you don't want to be the person who is saying the internet's a fad.
Right.
Newspapers aren't going anywhere.
Yep.
We're never going to buy things online. We're always going to go to stores. You don't want to be that person. So
I'm always going to take a taxi. I'm never going to Uber. Yeah.
It's like, the world will move forward whether you want it to or not. So, it's your choice to get on board. When it comes to like, doing finances and stuff with your spouse, everybody has a different point of view on this. I'm personally someone who thinks it's very bizarre when people make the choice to not combine all their finances and have like open conversations about everything. No judgment if that is your choice. It works for some people, but I can't imagine my own personal life with my wife. We've been married for almost 13 years now. If like we had separate checking accounts and we didn't talk about how much we were making or how much we were spending, because like if you're going to have like these big financial goals, like we want to be financially free by this age or whatever, but you have no transparency into each other's like progress towards that goal, it's like, how do you achieve anything? Like, how do you do it? So for us, anyway, it's like we talk about everything. Now, does my wife care about every like crypto thing I'm into?
Using off gas to, energy.
Like,
yeah, sure.
To some degree, she kind of like waves her hand and says, "It's working. Keep doing it." Whatever. But I try to keep her on the same page with any of those types of decision stuff. But like when it comes to big picture stuff, we talk about it. And like, what do we want to do? We want to buy another house. When we get into real estate investing, what does that look like? How can we save for that? We do budgeting stuff together. We stick to a plan. I believe in being as open and transparent with your spouse about all those things as possible, and also not like not being a dictatorship. If it's inevitable that someone in the relationship will make more than the other person, and then some people will view that as, I have more voting rights than the other person. I'm of the belief that you both agree to do this like a relationship, and if you are married, this partnership. So you both have equal say in it. So you should both come to an equal and mutual decision, regardless of who makes more or less, or who did this thing that much, or was this one successful, or was that one not successful. But that's just how I approach it. I'm sure there's a bunch of different ways to approach it, but this has been working for us so far. We're chasing our goals, trying to do these things, and we're excited about what we've done so far, and we're excited about what's next. But we have to be on the same page to do those things.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, love that. I love the teamwork aspect of kind of pulling together. If it's a common goal, then why wouldn't you want to pull together towards that? So, in kind of a similar vein, maybe kind of wrapping this up a little bit, Andy, I'm curious if you could go back and tell your college or post college self how to do things differently in this area of finance, or maybe to do things faster or start earlier. What would that be? What would you tell yourself if you could go back and change anything?
Oh, so many things. I actually, my video this week is actually called 20 lessons I would 20 lessons I would tell myself in my 20s, or I can't remember. We haven't come up with a final title yet, but it's 20 lessons that I wish I had known at age 20. Essentially, what the video is. And there's just so many things. I wish I had understood the power of compounding. Wish I could just go back in time and like beat that into my head and be like, hey, let me show you a compounding calculator. You think, $500 per month doesn't matter. Let me show you why it does, and like really explain that to me. I would have, really told myself, hey, bet on yourself big way sooner. Don't get sucked into doing what you think is expected of you. I would have done that way sooner. And the whole like thing of like not letting, so everyone worries about what other people think of them. And they don't realize that most other people never think of them. Like we all think about ourselves. Humans are selfish people. Like we just want to think about ourselves. We stare at ourselves in the mirror, like, vanity, all this stuff. And so people think about you far less than than you think they do. So why are you letting your fear of whatever it is that you think they're thinking about you dictate how you live your life? And there's lots of times in my life where I just let like expectations or worry about like what are people think about me, or what if I fail in a big way, or whatever, just dictate my life's direction. And I wish I could just gotten over that way sooner. There's a whole bunch of other things, but yeah, there's a few, I guess.
That would be a superpower. If I could give myself that one going back to the college days, that's a
yeah.
great one, man.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Andy, we want to be respectful of your time. We're super appreciative of you joining us. Where can people find you and kind of follow what you're doing? I know you've got a community as well. Tell us where we can find more of you.
Yeah, so if you want to watch some of my YouTube videos, just type in Your Friend Andy into YouTube and you'll find me. And from there, you can click the social media links to see me on Twitter. It's probably the second most active place I am. Or you can go to yourfriendandy.com and find the links to all these things. And I also do have a community called Sleep Money Club, ZZZmoneyclub.com. Where I'm in there every day chatting with people about like wealth building and investing and like making money on the side and all kinds of stuff. It's a pretty fun little community of people where we talk about all that stuff. But yeah, anywhere you want to find me or follow me, whatever, and just want to say hi, I appreciate it. And I appreciate anyone who watches my content or reads my tweets or anything. It's such a weird thing to do in life, to like make these videos and have people like from who knows where watch them. I'm just very grateful that happens, that exchange happens, and that there's some level of value that I can give to people and they keep watching, because it's been a really, really fun like life to live. And if anybody's listening to this and they've ever thought about like starting a YouTube channel or talking online or whatever, just try it. Like, don't sit on that idea. Don't regret like never trying it. Maybe it won't work out, but maybe it will, and you'll never know unless you try. So if you have ever had those thoughts, just get out there and give it a shot. It's so much fun if it works out.
I love that. That's very much in line with a lot of what we kind of try to talk about and preach is move to start something. Let's go. Like, it's so much of where we learn and enjoy life is in that movement and momentum. So thank you for that. That was well said. And I will kind of echo what you said, that, and for those listening, you've got a lot of great content. I've learned a lot from you. And so I'm really appreciative of you taking that jump to spend your time sharing what you've learned and providing content and how-tos and guides and tips for others. So thanks for what you do, Andy. And thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks, Andy.
Cool. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah.
It was fun. As always, we want to encourage you to take action on one item you heard in today's episode. Also, if you know someone that you think might benefit from this information, please share the episode with them. It's our goal to help more people live healthier lives, and we appreciate your help in sharing the message. Thanks, everybody.